Name changes during localization are nothing new. While a good bit of media keeps things consistent these days, it was pretty common to swap names to be easier to remember, for clarification, or just because something can mean something different between languages. When it comes to Mega Man Battle Network, most of the human names are at least slightly tweaked, if not changed completely to sound a bit more familiar. But as for the Navis, those were already all in English, so there was no need to approximate. Still, there were a few that got swapped, mostly in the anime. With the help of the fan wiki, I pulled the names of all the Navis affected so that we could speculate on why some of these might have gotten swapped. I'm Wes, the Explosion. Now let us begin. Of course, when it comes to name changes, there's three big ones that come to mind, and even among them, one stands supreme. Not just the character, but the whole franchise going from Rockman to Mega Man. This seems to be a marketing thing. While I saw a few other theories floated, the most common answer seems to be that the guy in charge of bringing it over just didn't think Rockman was a very good name. Agree to disagree. But regardless, it was changed to Mega Man, which not only has the advantage of alliteration, but also sounds mega cool, I guess. Pokemon also went with it over Awesome or Super Evolution. As for why it was even rock in the first place, he was named for rock and roll, the musical genre. His sister too. This will come up with the next two as well, and the theme continued with the Mega Man Killers and several of the support units, which makes it especially strange that the origin point of the trend gave it up. Well, kind of. When he's not fighting for justice and just hanging out around the house, he's still called Rock, except in the games where they try to change his civilian identity to just Mega, which I hate because that makes Roll's name stupid. Mega and Roll, this is why no woman ever slept with you, Thomas. And because Mega Man is just Megaman.EXE, sometimes Hub, in Battle Network, this kinda leaves Roll high and dry again, with a name that no one would give their kid except in the exact circumstance that the classic version got hers. But to go back to Rockman, there's one other reason I could see them altering it, and that's because of what rock means. I think in most cases, a music genre is just called what it's called. If you bring up samba or flamenco, I'm not gonna insist that you give it an English name. To the Japanese, I imagine rock is just short for rock and roll, and rock man just sounds like a rockin' guy who rocks your socks and the bad guy's face is off, all to some really good BGM. To us though, while we certainly love our rock and roll, our first thought might be a stone or a boulder or just a general clump of minerals. Granted, most characters in Classic do have English names, so Capcom probably was aware of the alternate meaning, and while I imagine they were aiming for an international hit, they probably were focused on Japan first and might not have been considering that the name would have foreigners thinking that the main character would be hucking rocks at people. No, that's Gutsman, stupid. So even though it probably was just, Mega is cooler, it coming across as a bit of a misnomer might have also played a part. As it should go without saying, because the English name is Mega Man, Rockman.EXE gets localized as Megaman.EXE, and this trend applies to literally every other iteration, not just Battle Network. Proto Man continues the pattern, having a musical civilian name, and a superhero one that he's better known for. Blues is a genre that's sad, based on a person's woes, and Blues is a robot that keeps to himself, running away from home, and coming across as stoic and lonely. Blue is also a color that he is not. Again, from a musical standpoint, it makes sense. But again, to English speakers, the name probably doesn't seem to fit. Since he's the original Robot Master though, DLN-000, a prototype of sorts, Proto Man is a sensible alternative. Except, much like Roll, that name does not work at all in Battle Network. Prototype of what? He's just kind of a highly customized, combat specialized netnavi, and I think his specs are pretty secretive. I don't think Chaud's spreading them around for anyone else to use to upgrade their own navis. But it's a navi based on blues, so the English game has to call him Proto Man. He's too recognizable and important to flippantly change his name to something more appropriate, like Edge Man. Sword Man's taken, and he's not purple enough for Blade Man. So while the identity change makes sense for Classic, it is kinda stupid here. But of the big three, Bass follows his own pattern. Originally Forte, he still keeps the music motif and doesn't add a man to the end of his name. Maybe it's because Bass was designed to be Bass. He wasn't a civilian robot modified for combat or one who struck out on his own creating his own identity. He was Base, the Robot Master created to be the strongest and to take down Mega Man. Why not just keep the name Forte though? In music, it means loud, which could reference not only his big power, but also how loud and angry he seems to become after his initial appearance in 7. Forte also means specialty, and given that he's SWN, Special Wily Number 001, and is specialized for combat, it works on multiple levels. To quote Battle Network, "Battle is my forte." It is kind of the perfect name for him, so again, why? Well, that might be the fault of his partner, Gospel, or as we know him, Treble. Also as Gospel. For all you out there who aren't good Christian boys like me, it refers to the teachings of Christ. It's also been adapted to mean, in more general terms, something that is absolutely true, or the word somebody lives by. And of course, it's also a type of Christian music, so it keeps to that theme. And while I could see Capcom just picking a random genre, using a name with religious connotation could definitely come with some negative reactions. I can't believe they're appropriating my religion. Also, I can't believe they're trying to force on me their religion. So they changed it. And then they forgot they changed it in Mega Man and Bass, at least for the instruction booklet, which was enough for me to think that they had undone Treble's localization. Luckily, it does seem to have just been a mistake since Bass and Treble work as a pair. Them's your settings on your radio or marks on your music sheet. Bass and gospel are just kinda two different things. I mean, I guess you could get a bassy singer to do gospel, but if only Treble had reverted, it would have felt like a betrayal to Bass. Anyway, back to Battle Network, the second game's villain organization and the final boss they spawn for you keep the name Gospel, and some of the dialogue does seem almost to have religious undertones, so it kinda fits. Sure, there were still some associations with Bass, so maybe they should have kept the name Treble, but they were less interlinked, and they really needed to be called something that started with G for their emblem to work. The anime avoided this though, and they became Grave, which kinda surprised me, since that's easy to associate with death, but hey, maybe the dub team was feeling spicy for this one. Or they just couldn't think of another word that began with G. Moving on to the larger cast though, one of the easiest explanations is simply that the name was already taken. I mean, just about every Navi is something man, which is pretty standard naming convention not just for superheroes, but media in general. For instance, this is Starman, and this is Starman, and this is Starman, and this is Starman.EXE, aka Nova Man in the anime. Just 3 Starmen from Nintendo alone. Then there's Bomb Man or Bomba Man, and this is Bomber Man, thus the Navi becomes Blaster Man. I was gonna put this one in another category, but did a quick Google search, and it turns out that Beast Man is a He-Man character, so instead, this guy's Savage Man. Aquaman's special, since not only is the other Aquaman owned by WB, and NT Warrior aired on Kids WB in America, probably making them even more mindful of the shared name, but they even changed his name in Battle Network 6 to Spoutman, like in the anime, though the Legacy Collection changed it back. And while no other fictional fireman comes to mind, I could see them not wanting people to associate the pyromaniac bad guy with the noble profession of extinguishing and saving people from fire. Not that that stopped Ray Bradbury. Thus, Fireman becomes Torchman, which means he also shares a name with a Robot Master from 11, though I think it's obvious which he matches more. And finally, there's one unique to the game, the final boss Proto becoming Alpha. This is probably due to a previously mentioned localization, Blues becoming Proto Man, though it's actually appropriate here, this creature being the prototype of the Net, gone out of control. So if you can't go with Proto, why not Alpha, the first letter of the Greek alphabet, often associated with beginnings, and programs like games that are still in the testing phase. And now I think I've gotten all of them, though I could still be missing a few just due to not knowing every character with the last name of Man. Also interesting how most of these are exclusive to the anime, maybe due to stricter broadcasting rules, WB having a hand in things, or Viz just feeling less cavalier with the copyright. Or maybe they just weren't shy about swapping names to make them sound cooler, since it seems like some of these were done just because. Plan and Needle don't sound threatening, so we get Vine Man and Spike Man. While I can kind of understand it, at the same time, isn't Plant Man's flower head more prominent? Then again, Flower Man might not be intimidating enough for a villain either. Cold Man always felt a little lame as a name. I mean, you got Ice, Freeze, Frost, Blizzard, and eventually Chill, but this guy is just cold? You don't say. So while Fridge Man might make him sound like just an appliance, it's at least a little more interesting and does fit with how he works. Another unique to the game one, Footman, who plays American football, has a name that could go a lot of other ways, so now he's called Gridman because he plays out on the gridiron, which might also not be the most apt name, but it does at least sound cooler. Then there are a few names that are made longer, for some reason. Metal Man becomes Heavy Metal Man because I guess we are doing the music genre thing now. Or maybe it's just a comment on his weight, I don't know, though that would seem a little rude. Junk Man gets elongated to Junk Data Man, which Junk could come across as pathetic, and the added in Data does tie him into being a Navi. At the same time though, in the anime, his whole thing is collecting physical junk in space. Wind Man is now Wind Blast Man, which is weird since I thought they never translated his episode. This is from when Mega Man uses his double soul later, isn't it? And also how he got an action figure. Geez, I bet that wasn't confusing, leaving people questioning whether they missed an episode. You didn't, Viz did. And while I'm not including the anime-exclusive Navis since most of them barely matter, I'll make an exception for Breakman since that was originally from Classic, who here gets changed to Rocket Man to sound more impressive, I guess. Also as a bonus, I'll mention the Navis that the wiki mentions were originally intended to be called something else. Magic was going to be called Wizard Man, and the Robot Master was patterned after a stage magician, so I can kinda see how these maybe weren't intended to be the same character. But hey, both are magic in some way, so it was a good opportunity to tie the RM to a Navi. Judge Man was originally going to be called Bookman, but that sounds nerdy, whereas judges can be imposing, so I can understand the change. Circus Man was going to be called Pyro Man, though Pyro might be a hard word for kids, and Circus not only fits the clown aesthetic, but also his Beast Tamer abilities. There's also one that's more of a translation, them finally changing Yamato Man to Japan Man. I mean, I like the original name, I'm just surprised they left it in for the NES. Anyway, quick Google search says that it was the original name for Japan, and apparently means Great Harmony, and them going with the Japan half of that makes more sense for the Samurai Warrior than Harmony Man. Maybe Great Man would have worked too? Then as a special bonus, there's Noodle Man, called Sanuki Man in Japanese, Sanuki being a type of udon noodle. He's able to change his appearance and turns into Guts Man, calling himself Nuggets Man when he does. Nuggets not just being a type of food, but also kind of including the word guts. In Japan, the metamorphosis is called Kutsu Man, which Kutsu apparently means shoe. That doesn't seem quite right, though autofill also brings up Kutsinta, which is a type of steamed rice cake from the Philippines. This seems more in line with the Nuggets thing, both tying into food, so I'm gonna guess that this was what they were going for. Oh, and there's also a Navi in BN3 called Copy Man who also transforms into Guts Man, so if there's any connection there, you could say that this is a Navi with almost half a dozen names. The last category, though, are the inappropriate, perhaps even wildly inappropriate titles, most of which also involve the games. Battle Network 6 gets Killer Man, which might be a little violent for a children's game, so he gets changed to Erase Man. Never mind that makes him sound like he belongs in an office supply store, how there have been several fairly nasty occurrences in Battle Network previously, or how they could have picked something slightly less stupid, like Scythe or Sneak or Scary Man, really anything else. Then there's Napalm Man. I can't believe they ever got away with that name, even way back on the NES. Napalm is an incendiary mixture, used in firebombings that Wikipedia describes as burning longer than gasoline, easily dispersed, and adhering to its targets. While not technically a war crime, it is controversial and was used pretty infamously in a few wars, the original Napalm Man stage even kinda looking like Vietnam. Seriously, holy crap, I can guess who you weren't planning on selling Mega Man 5 to. So for the anime, we get Multanic Man? What the hell does Multanic mean? Okay, this guy is the only thing that shows up when I do a search, so it might be made up. Perhaps a combination of molten and volcanic, and given that he does shoot off intensely hot, fiery explosives, that would kind of work. So yeah, this might be the oddest change because while that name really did not fly for a children's show, this is the only word that they seem to have just pulled out of their ass. Battle Network 5, Japan got Swallow Man, we got Lark Man. And hey, maybe someone thought that larks were cooler than swallows. I don't know, I'm not a birdologist. But if I could hazard a slightly different guess, it'd be really easy to make oral sex jokes based on the original name. Thus why I'm putting him here. The big one for this category though is Wacko Man, and I'm starting with his anime dub name because I don't want to say the original one, though I probably should for the sake of the video. In Japan, his name is Colored Man. And while calling someone colored isn't a slur, it's not really a socially acceptable way to refer to a non-white individual. Not really acceptable to call someone white that either. I mean, maybe not unacceptable, just more inaccurate, assuming you view white as a lack of color. I mean, look at me, I once ran around in white long underwear and someone thought I was naked at a distance. To put it another way, it's a word that's gone out of style, due to how it was used. I think the only person I've ever heard say it was my grandma, and I think my mother flinched when she did. So no big deal, just remove the ED and we get Color Man, who is a colorful guy, so much so that he's able to use both heat and aqua attacks while being neutral himself. So kinda 3 elements. But I guess that was still too close for the anime dub, so he got changed again to Wacko Man. He's kinda clown-like, with a goofy voice to boot, and he can get into some pretty wacky cartoon shenanigans, so Wacko Man. Also worth noting that WB has a character named Wacko, though with 2 Ks instead of CK, which could be a reference, could be coincidence. But yeah, we're wrapping things up with a name so uncomfortable, they felt the need to change it twice. I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while, but when someone started asking me about Nova Man a week ago, and I had no idea who they were talking about, I did have doubts that I'd be able to remember them all. Thank goodness for that list of netnavis. As for name changes in general though, I prefer it when things are kept consistent. Not only does it prevent confusion, like in the situation I just mentioned, but it also makes it easier to look things up. Do you know how many times I tried to search for stuff on eBay and had to question whether I should type in Mega Man or Rockman? Good listings will have both, but still. Also, just to reiterate something I said at the top of the video, these are all largely speculation on my part. While I was able to find some stuff on our titular character, it ain't like they're gonna have accounts on the SWATs for all the small fry, so those are left up to interpretation. I could be wrong on several of these. So with that, let me ask you, did I miss anybody? Do you have any better explanations on the ones that I covered? And should I take a look at any of the other name changes from the Mega Man franchise? If I did Classic, I could pretty much just recycle the bits for our playable trio. With that, thanks as always for watching, and maybe consider subscribing if you're into retro games, especially Mega Man. Battle routine set, execute.